you know, he finds himself in a pretty tricky situation in this film. As the title suggests, he finds himself in a trap, so he's got to find his way out.
M. Night has had a tumultuous career. From the dizzying heights of critical successes such as Signs, The Sixth Sense, and Unbreakable, to an embarrassing string of failures starting with Lady in the Water and finally bottoming out with Avatar: The Last Airbender. Nowadays, it can be difficult to remember that there was a time when M. Night was hailed as a genius, working with the biggest actors in Hollywood under Disney's production studio, Touchstone Pictures. For more than a decade now, he has been forcibly exiled to the low-budget horror realm, where he's produced a mixed bag of financially successful films that have, for the most part, failed to resonate with critics. As a writer and director, M. Night has a lot of problems. He's not particularly good at balancing tone. His dialogue often feels stilted and unnatural. At times, his themes lack subtlety or depth, and most all of his movies rely on massive plot contrivances to facilitate his trademark twists. These twists themselves being a somewhat juvenile gimmick a better director probably would have abandoned earlier in their career. That being said, I've recently revisited much of his filmography, and I have to say, I enjoy most of his films. I find a lot of his shortcomings to be, frankly, endearing, and think he has a unique enough style that almost all of his movies are enjoyable, if only on an ironic so bad it's good level. Having now exhausted the bulk of Shyamalan's catalog, Trap could not have come at a better time. I was excited at the prospect of more Shyamalan content. Unfortunately, Trap kind of fucking sucked.
Psst. Cooper, Jamie, what's with all the police trucks outside? The cameras everywhere, Jamie. I'm not supposed to tell.
It's a trap.
Something happening?
It's a trap.
Don't rat me out. I won't. You know the butcher? The freaking nut job that goes around just chopping people up? Well, the feds or whatever heard that he's gonna be here today, so they set up a trap for him.
It's a trap.
This whole concert? It's a trap.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
They're watching all the exits, checking everyone that leaves.
It's a trap.
There's no way to get out of here.
It's a trap.
Trap is plagued with a number of issues, some of which completely undermine the central premise. For instance, Josh Hartnett plays a deranged serial killer who is desperately trying to blend in with society. In order to communicate this, he plays the role as eerily positive, grinning ear to ear and dispensing extremely agreeable dialogue to anyone who will listen. All in all, it's a pretty entertaining performance. But for this role to work, the other characters need to act as a sort of straight man to help highlight his odd behavior. Unfortunately, this is an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and as a result, everyone talks like weird-ass fucking alien people. The merch guy is weird. The lady from the parent-teacher conference is weird. Kid Cudi, The Thinker, is really fucking weird.
No, that's Pharaoh Fig. I specifically said I wanted honeysuckle sour kombucha, bitch.
Naturalistic dialogue has never been M. Night's strong suit, but I feel like if he had reined in his desire to write every character as an 11 on the quirky scale, Josh's performance could have been allowed to shine a little bit more. Another frustrating issue with Trap is it doesn't seem exactly sure who its audience is. The main character of our film is a serial killer known for dismembering his victims and leaving their body parts strewn around town. You would think this macabre premise would lead to at least one or two slasher-esque sequences. Unfortunately, Trap is probably one of the tamest PG-13 movies I've ever seen. To put this into context, The Dark Knight is PG-13. Return of the King is PG-13. Trap is nowhere near these films on a violence scale. It's almost like M. Night thought he could maybe get a PG rating. For a guy called The Butcher, Cooper seems extremely adverse to using violence, even in situations where it would be absolutely to his advantage. Let's put it this way, if American police officers use the same level of restraint shown by Cooper when abducting Lady Raven, police brutality cases would be halved overnight. This is a persistent issue throughout the film. It really feels like M. Night is trying to court two audiences that don't necessarily have a lot of overlap, that being fans of crime thrillers and fans of recorded pop concerts. Going into the film, I was not expecting nearly as much uninterrupted concert footage. There are scenes where it just goes on and on and on, well past when you think it would cut. In theory, this could have been cool. You get to have a little bit of drama and you get to hear your favorite pop artist. Problem is, Lady Raven is a fictional artist who nobody in the real world knows or listens to their music. I mean, this would be like watching a Scooby-Doo film where it's 50% solving mysteries and 50% a Hex Girls concert. This leads me to the real elephant in the room, that elephant being the casting of M. Night Shyamalan's daughter.
You know, it was a project that came from our conversations. Actually, this wasn't even for me to direct. This was just an idea that we had started talking about. Hey, could you write an album for a movie, for a long-form narrative, and then the characters actually hear all the songs in the movie, not as score, but just that actually the characters are hearing it. And we were, you know, a big inspiration was Purple Rain and how Prince did that. That was like a big thing. We watched it and we're saying, hey, could we do a thriller version of this?
I would like to say that normally I don't find discussions around nepotism in Hollywood to be very interesting. I think they play well on social media because they allow everyday average Americans a vector to diminish and deride the Hollywood elite. However, at the end of the day, it's kind of like every time the Daily Mail does a big story when Leonardo DiCaprio shacks up with a 19-year-old. Your mother can complain about it all she likes on Facebook, but this train ain't stopping anytime soon. From what I can tell in interviews, Shyamalan seems to really love his daughter, and I could see why he would want to share his passion for filmmaking with her and collaborate on a project where they can both contribute artistically. But God, did this casting decision hurt the quality of the film, and at times it feels like it's the entire point of the movie. Had Shyamalan cast a real pop star like Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, or Megan Thee Stallion, the film could have benefited from drawing from their audience. That's typically the trade-off when you cast a famous musician. Maybe they can't act, but they can put butts in seats. Casting Suleika Shyamalan, you get the worst of both worlds. As a musician, she's never had a song in the charts, so you can't ride off her star power. And unfortunately, she can't act for shit. Seriously, I've been more stressed out at family reunions than Lady Raven is while locked in a car with a guy who's seen the insides of more women than your local gynecologist. Perhaps worse yet, Lady Raven is crammed into the plot in ways that make absolutely no sense. How could the FBI possibly benefit from working with a pop star to this degree? She should be performing her concert, business as usual, and then going on with her day. But for whatever reason, she's getting post-performance briefings on a very sensitive ongoing case from the FBI's top profiler. M. Night is so eager to cram his daughter down all our throats that bizarrely the film changes point of view characters for the only time in order to give Suleika a weird bathroom scene where she fires up an Instagram live in order to enlist the help of her followers to locate one of the butcher's victims. This is probably the cringiest scene in the movie, and it just doesn't work on so many levels. I don't care how big Lady Raven is, there is no way that a fan could tune into an Instagram live in time to hear a vague description of a house, get off the couch, put on shoes, walk to the house, and then free an entrapped Asian man in under 5 minutes. And while we're on the topic, what app is the butcher using here? You're telling me there is an in-world application with two-way monitoring, the ability to release carbon monoxide, and it has a demonic bull as the logo? That is some wild branding. I mean, am I supposed to believe that the butcher coded this himself? Is he proficient in Python? Is there a deep web market for applications specifically made for serial killers? I don't think M. Night thought this one through, guys. Another problem I have with the film is Cooper's variable degree of competence. At times, he's playing 4D chess, outwitting the FBI at every turn. Then, when it's convenient for the plot to progress, he has massive lapses in judgment. Case in point, he is finally apprehended when his wife convinces him to eat a cake laced with a metric fuck-ton of Klonopin. I don't know how this is even possible. I mean, pharmaceutical drugs are not tasteless, especially when ground into a powder form. They actually contain additives that produce a bitter taste in order to prevent children from accidentally consuming them. And why even eat the cake? You're telling me that our cold, calculating serial killer was outwitted by a woman who didn't notice her husband digging a massive tunnel in their pantry? On a final note, the arrest scene is absolutely ludicrous. Cooper is tased like 4 times and tries to rip a cop's eyeballs out. Meantime, a gun is never drawn at any point. This is all conducted in complete silence, by the way. There's no, get on the ground, stop resisting. This just doesn't feel like reality. I mean, I'm not familiar with the practices of Philadelphia PD, but where I'm from, if a half-naked serial killer man tries to rip a cop's eyeballs out, they're probably going to use lethal force. Also, they probably wouldn't then let the deranged murder man who just tried to rip a guy's eyeballs out hug his daughter, because that could create, I don't know, an obvious hostage situation, but what do I know? There are a lot more issues in this film I could probably discuss, but unfortunately, Trap does not have a so bad it's good quality. Over the course of the film, M. Night indulges in all of his worst tendencies and proves to us he's capable of concocting new, never-before conceived of ways of shitting up the screen. I'm not going to say that it is his worst film, and that's not saying much, but it is certainly his most boring and one I will probably never watch again. 2 out of 10.